Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Schmidt, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership at TEPSA. And each episode, I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another and bring them on to share some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to tell some of yours. I am thrilled for this episode to have my friend, my namesake here today, a fellow Todd in the house, Todd Schmidt. Thank you for being here. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Well, you got it. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. I am thrilled to be here. My name is Todd Schmidt. I am an elementary principal in beautiful Southern California. This is scarily enough, my 24th year in education. Wow. I did 13 years as a classroom teacher and then have been an administrator for high school, middle school, and now elementary. I love it. I love the elementary kiddos. I am the proud father of two daughters. My amazing wife helps keep me in check as well. And then as I am born and raised in San Diego, I am a long-suffering San Diego sports fan. So yeah, and right now we are learning how to do this digitally. I'm pretty proud of myself for my COVID-19 shirt.
I love the shirt. I saw it on social media earlier today, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to talk to Todd later. I love that shirt.
So yeah, my buddy Nick Proud showed it off, and I was like, and they're actually a California-based company that actually donates money to worthy causes. So I like it.
There we go. Win-win. Well, Todd, whenever I interview an educator, I always love kind of starting with their path into education. And so, were you one of those kids who were like, I know I'm going to be a teacher from when I was little? Or were you like, heck no, I don't know how I ended up in there, but I did and I loved it. How did you end up in education?
I was one of those people that knew it from the start. I have amazing teachers that I can pretty much pick out across the way. I will embarrassingly say, because I don't get embarrassed anymore, I think it's benefit of age, I used to take extra worksheets home and teach stuffed animals.
Oh, that is
awesome. So yeah, this is something I've known I've always wanted to do. I didn't know where, though. Like, I didn't know what level I would be in. I kind of originally thought maybe elementary. And then I was blessed to actually have some pretty extraordinary middle school teachers. My middle school history teacher was one of those who really kind of helped guide me in that. And yeah, I knew that this was going to be my path. I love it. It's something that just brings me so much joy. But yeah, I have wanted to be in education and have stayed in education the entire time.
So, you decided after 13 years, I think you said that, administration was the next step for you. Was there a certain catalyst where you were like, I think I'm ready for this? Or how did that come about?
I've been as a teacher, and I know you can speak to this too, because you and I've talked about this before as well, but I have been blessed as a teacher to have had some amazing administrators. I have also been blessed, I guess, as a teacher to not have had them. And I have been encouraged, inspired by several of them, and I have seen how it can actually a bad administrator could really has a huge impact on not just a classroom, but like a culture. Yeah. And you watch how that happens. And so I had some friends who were starting to look into it, and I thought, you know what, I could do this. I know I can do this. I know I can help other teachers. I know I can help make an impact that will go beyond just the four walls of my classroom. And just seeing the impact that a great administrator has on a campus, you're like, okay, I think I could do this. And it has been one of the most challenging and rewarding and most exhausting jobs I think we have ever had. Is, you have incredible highs and really, really tough lows, and you deal with things that you did not expect you deal with. And they're gut-wrenching and heartbreaking and uplifting at sometimes. And that has been something that I kind of use as my guidance, is what would I have liked as a teacher when I was in the classroom.
Well, you talked about how you've been an administrator in several different grade bands of schools. And I know that every group is different, but, for your personality and who you are, which one of those areas did you find the most challenging? What grade band?
I think, honestly, high school was definitely more challenging, just because you were dealing with some really serious issues that are hard. And, when you're dealing with kiddos at that level, especially because I was an assistant principal. I was a high school and middle school assistant principal. And so you sometimes are dealing with kiddos on not their best day. And in fact, a lot of times you're dealing with not only them, but then you're having to explain that to families. And so I think that was really, really hard. Also because you had them for such a limited amount of time. When I made the move into elementary, you saw the impact you had, that you started with at such a young age. And yeah, but I guess that's a great question. But high school, I think, really kind of hit me hard because what you saw a lot of times was really intense. It was really, really intense.
I often talk about how before I knew I was going to be a teacher, one of the jobs I considered was social work. And then when I realized how much emotional fortitude you need to be able to do work like that, I was like, I can't do that. I want to impact kids. And so what I'm hearing you say, what I'm connecting with is, I think that would be a difficult part for me working in high school as well, is because with little kids, there's a lot of serious issues that you deal with. But most of it is out of their control. Whereas then when you get into high school and things, there are a lot of serious issues, but a lot of it tends to be what the high school kids are doing to themselves, or are situations they're putting themselves in. And it's heartbreaking. And I've talked to several high school administrators before who are like, you wouldn't believe what I just had to deal with, or the phone call I just had to make, or the visit I'm going to have to do later, or things like that. And I'm just like, I don't know if I could emotionally handle dealing with that on a daily basis.
Yeah, those were the things, like, and when you said the phone calls you'd have to make to parents to say, this is what just happened, dealing with kids. Like, I mean, like, we would talk about them sometimes and I'd be like, oh my God, like, I can't even believe that. What the heck was that? And so, yeah, it definitely hits. I mean, elementary too, and it's a different clientele of student, but it's also, I will say that it's a different clientele of teacher.
Yeah.
High school teachers are just, they're different than elementary teachers in how they approach a lot of things. And so you learned real quickly how to balance all of that, but you were dealing with a lot of adults, and that could be a big challenge as well.
Now, you are quite the big personality, and you know how to turn it on and have a great time. And has that always been part of who you are, or did you kind of grow into that?
No, I'm a big ham from the start. Nothing. I don't get embarrassed by much. I like to have fun.
Because when I spend time with you, and hearing you say that you've always been like that, now I'm always like, I wonder what kind of elementary kid he was. I mean, I could just imagine having so much fun as your teacher, or as your administrator, or even your parents.
I think I did apologize to a couple of my teachers because I'm a very social guy and I talk a lot. But I used to tell my students, like, look, the irony of all of this is I used to get busted all the time for talking too much. Like, it didn't matter where they put me in a classroom. I would talk to anybody and I would distract them and we'd have a grand old time. But yeah, I had my middle school, one of my heroes, my middle school history teacher, told me when I did my student teaching at the same school that I went to middle school, he's like, Todd, you were a wonderful student, but you were the most talkative child I have ever had. And this guy had been teaching for 20, 30 years at that point. He goes, because I asked him, I'm like, because he was telling me how he did his seating charts. He's like, okay, here's my theory and here's how I do this and da-da-da. And he was a very traditional teacher, but he had his desks and rows and everything like this. And so when I was picking his brain and talking to it, he goes, yeah, I always put my four most talkative kids in the four corners. And I had him for 2 years. I'm like, wait a second, I was always in the corner. And he goes, yeah, I actually kept that empty seat next to you just because. And I was like, this is making so much sense now. But
and I can totally believe all of that 100%. But you also, though, what I've always admired about you is you're very self-deprecating. You don't mind being silly, dancing, singing, and has that been part of that too? And if so, or how, like, is there ever moments where insecurity begins to creep into those pieces?
I think when I was younger, yeah. Again, I wasn't one who was shy about being on a stage, or doing those kinds of things. Doing things solo, I think, was definitely a little nerve-wracking. I cared, especially when I was younger, I cared what people thought, and I didn't want to upset people, but more times than not, I mean, I've grown into it as I've gotten older that, not much. I mean, when we were at Get Your Lead On, I'm sitting there dancing around with a jammy pack. I'm like,
It was good. You did good too. I was like, dang, he can actually dance.
Around, and I'm like, I don't, so I think that that's one of the things that I have found is that if I'm willing to put myself out there, then other people will do it as well. And sometimes they're like, okay, like your teachers or your students, if you're like, okay, go try this, go be out there and, take a risk or something like that. That Brad Curry quote about who you have to be the one who's going to jump first. And so that is something that has kind of developed, I will say, as a principal, it's become more so. Like I will do a lot to get a kid to smile and to shock the heck out of teachers sometimes, just because, I figure if I'm having fun, at least somebody is. So
you're a man of many costumes and suits and t-shirts and hats and everything. But
you are too.
Well, but not like you. No. I could go through your social media and find about 100 more examples than I could ever in mine. And you can tell you put a lot of thought into yours, and I'm always like, dang, like I don't know if I'll ever be able to get that image out of my head of you being Elf on a Shelf.
Yeah, that one was fun, and that thing, and again, as somebody,
that thing is hot, isn't it?
It's hot, and as someone who sweats sitting still, when you put on polyester
in California.
And the hat thing, yes, in California, and you're walking around, and I read to kids in that thing, and I mean, I was dying in it. But it was one of those things. And I mean, I have a picture of one of my teachers. Someone caught the picture because I'm standing there, and and a teacher's behind me, and she's just looking at me, and I'm like, see, yeah, that right there, that's what I go for. Is just that whole like, what the heck is this guy doing? So I think that so many of us have really tried to redefine what it means to be a school leader and to be a principal. And, that's why we talk about getting out of our offices and why, just the people who are our friends and that we have connected with in this journey that we have been on together, we all kind of tend to embrace the weird. For some of us, it's a little easier. I know how hard it is for you sometimes to be that person out there with the wig and the suit and the whole 9 yards and whatnot. So I know that so kudos to you, because like people like me, where it's really not that big of a deal, and I don't see why everybody else just doesn't do it too. But yeah.
I love that. Well, Todd, like you said, you are pretty active on social media. You're well connected with a bunch of principals from across the nation through Principals in Action and NASP and all these other great opportunities. And, what I've always found is those allow you to grow so much as a leader with the conversations and the ideas. But something else that can sometimes inadvertently happen is people can often get caught in this comparison trap, or this, I've got to do stuff as good as them because they're killing it. And I don't feel like I'm killing it now because I'm seeing what they're doing. Do you ever find those kind of things creeping up on you?
Absolutely.
So how do you keep that from taking root and immobilizing you?
It's hard. My staff jokingly refers to, I have shiny object syndrome. Like I'm like, ooh, that looks great, let's go do that. Like for example, like when you did houses at your school, when you went to Ron Clark and you did all those things, and I was like, that just absolutely looks amazing. And I'm looking around, because I can use you as my example, because there was one time where I was just like, I can't do that. I can't. Right. I couldn't. I doubt I could get all these people to be ready, fly them all there. So there are times where I've had to like kind of just remember that what I'm doing is helping. I will also say, Todd, that one of the things that I have found out is sometimes the things that I think are just so, I don't know, everyday, kind of things, people appreciate, and they're like, I didn't even think about that. So it helps us so much when we're also connected anyway, because like I had a conversation. I teach a college class, and this same conversation just came up where they were like, how do you stay connected? And I'm like, look, I'm going to share with you some stuff I've done. And I'm going to also tell you, I did not come up with any of it. And I said, I'm going to give you the same piece of advice that my master teacher gave me when I first started. She gave me 2 pieces of advice. I mean, she's an amazing woman. She gave me tons, but the 2 that she's like, these are the 2. Number 1, you make best friends with the head custodian and the office manager, because despite what the principal may think, they're the 2 that actually run the school.
Yep.
Okay, good call. Second, you do not reinvent the wheel. You borrow, cheat, steal, and beg for everything. And that is what has happened, is that so much of the stuff that you see, you're like, I can do that, but I can put my own spin on it. So that, to get back to your question, I've learned that I don't have to be completely innovative.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to be really good at going, okay, reading my crowd and going, what's going to be a good thing and what can I do and how can I make this kind of fun for everybody? And then also take a breath.
Yeah.
I haven't done that in a long time. I have to remember to breathe. Like,
see, yeah. And I can totally connect and relate with you on that. And, I think what you said though is such a great point is, it's so funny when people will come to me and be like, that was such a great idea. And I have to go, that wasn't my idea at all. Like I totally stole that from someone else, which is where when you get in that mindset of, I'm just going to have people help me grow. And it doesn't mean just because it's amazing for them, it doesn't mean it's right for my school or for my time right now to try to implement that. And I love also what you said of some of the things that you find so typical or every day or haven't made that big of a deal. I still remember hearing you speak several years ago at NAESP, and you shared so many ideas that you considered really just basic ideas. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. And that would be so easy to do. But, we hear so much and we go to so much that things go by the wayside. So just being constantly reminded. And I know you are really good too about keeping people in your circle who are great people for you to bounce ideas off of, who keep you level, who keep you reminded who you are. And so has that been a really cognizant choice of yours to create circles like that?
I think a little bit, like right now and my friendships that I value the most are the ones who are like you, like the people who have pushed me and challenged me and encouraged me and been there. So, you have that. So like when you go to something like NAESP and people are like, are you guys all from the same district? And we're like, we're not even from the same state. And we have all these adventures together, but we're also all like, come on in because you got something and we can all share what we're doing and stuff like that. And so now I am, but thinking back to where it kind of all began, and you mentioned NAESP, and I really do think like when we all met in Long Beach, you all came to California and I went to that thing. And I sat there in a couple of different sessions and I was just kind of blown away. And it was like, there are these kind of people out there. Oh, I thought I was a nut job. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you start to build these slow connections and you find out how willing they are to share their ideas with you and are willing to just kind of post. And so when you get those connections, now I really do am very cognizant of the circles I keep. I also look a lot at the energy, with people that I have in my life and who uplifts me and who inspires me. And who I'm just kind of like, yeah, you know what? I don't know if we're on the same page. And thank you for, but I have to be very mindful of that because as well as I do that being in this position can be very lonely at times. And as much as my teachers it's one of the reasons why I have you guys in my life connected with you guys is because when I talk about something that to them sounds completely crazy, you're like, yeah, totally get it. Like just when we got on this thing, we started talking. It was like, oh, thank God. Okay, somebody else.
I know. It was like before I even went live, we did a whole episode. Like we could have a whole standalone episode of a conversation, and I was like, oh man, I wish we were recording this. Like this is great conversation of us just catching up and being like, oh, can I vent about this? Or hey, are you going through this? And so it was really great. And that kind of leads me to my next question of we're in unprecedented times. You're in a state that was one of the first hit states. There's a lot going on around our country. How are you holding everything together, not only for your school, but for yourself and your family?
And you know what? And that's the part right there that I think is making sure I'm taking care of myself. And that took a long time for me to not feel like I was being selfish by wanting to take care of myself or taking time. Like, I purposely, like when I leave, I do the little toggle on my phone to turn off my email because I have to have it off because otherwise I will spend all my time on something like that. So I am intentional now about it and I don't feel guilty. I'm looking at it because it's like right here. I don't feel guilty anymore about it because the people that I need in my life to have access to me, they have my cell phone number. Text me if you need me. But email, rarely has anything ever come at 9:00 at night that's made me feel really great about myself. So, so if I can, so that's been that. I also make sure that I'm taking care of my family, my daughters, my wife, making sure that we're being really intentional with our time together. But, I think, again, that goes back to this whole thing of being connected with people and seeing how they're kind of handling it. Facebook Live has been great. I do readings on Facebook Live.
Yes, I love them.
And it's the easiest thing because you truly just show up, hold a book up in front of the camera and do shout outs when they come on the live stream. And they love it. They love it. But you get other principals who are like, oh, I could do that. It's like, yeah, it really, seriously, it's 20 minutes a day. And it's a simple, easy way for me to be connected to our kids. In this day and age where we're now all becoming experts on Zoom or Google Meet or Google Hangout or whatever you're using. We've done virtual happy hours with staff, and that's been a lot of fun. And spirit days that you can do from home, and you send your pictures on. Social media actually has really kind of showcased itself to be a very powerful way for us to really not only share our story, but stay connected with our families and let them see what you're doing. And so those are some of the things that I think just kind of give me a lot of joy to see their faces and whatnot. Today I covered for one of my teachers, and I had all of my transitional kindergartners. I had these 5-year-olds, and we did an hour online. We wore sunglasses and we played alphabet bingo, and I read a story, and I learned how to mute them all because, my God, they all talked.
Yep.
But they were so stinkingly cute and they were so happy. And I was like, I'll do that for anybody. That was huge. So anyway, they were, you kind of, again, you start to kind of figure it out. You start to kind of figure it out a little bit.
Well, and one thing that you said right then that really resonated with me was you had to get to a point to learn that taking care of yourself was not you being selfish. And I think that that's a really powerful nugget that I wanted to repeat, because I think for many of us, that's hard. When you are a principal or a teacher or a parent or a spouse, it's like when you feel like you start talking about that, it's like, well, now I'm being selfish. And it's like, no, it's that reminder of, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're good to nobody else.
Exactly.
So I'm glad you said that. Well, Todd, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, Todd, one question I always love to end these conversations on is, I believe as humans, there are things that we hold really tightly to our belief system, to our hearts. And so for the people who are listening or watching today, if you want them to walk away with one thing, what would your one thing be?
God, that's a great question. I have really kind of tried to define my life on, really kind of making sure that we're looking out for other people, and that we're taking care of other people, and that we're uplifting them as best as we can. Right. And I have that sign on my door that says that this principal is going to do what's in the best interest of kids. And I try to really kind of hone in on that a lot, because there are so many things that are constantly playing in our periphery. But people really, really do want to care. They want to be a part of this. They want to enjoy this. And so as somebody who can kind of help connect that and really kind of harness that and really find a way to just kind of really make sure that we're bringing people in and really focusing in on those relationships.
Right.
That's where it pays off in the end, those connections. And so that's something that I just try to hold on to, is how can I best build a connection with people.
I love that. That's a perfect way to end this. Well, Todd, you are one of the most genuine, kind-hearted people I've ever met. And, there's a lot of people that come into your life and go in and out of your life at certain times, and that you allow yourselves to connect with. And you've always been somebody who I felt like was such a positive force, such an encourager, and just always willing to step up whenever. And so I am so grateful, not only for you to come on as my guest, but for you to be part of my life. So thank you, Todd, for coming on Tell Your Story today.
You got it, buddy. You are definitely worth it. Thank you, my friend.
And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get it, it's there. I hope today's conversation with Todd has encouraged you to get out there and tell your story, because every story matters.